Blumenthal.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Welcome to the committee, and thank you for being willing to serve Mr. Ross. Let me begin where my colleague, Senator Sullivan, finished. On the issue of fisheries, as you know, you have very substantial authority under your emergency powers to correct for inequities and overfishing. I'd like a commitment that you will consider using those emergency powers to address the flow of certain fish stocks, which you and I have discussed, from the Middle Atlantic states to the New England states, without the authority to fish at sufficient quotas for the fishermen of New England.
Right. Well, I do remember very clearly our conversation, and I think it will be important to make sure that quotas are allocated properly. I'll need to do research to follow up on the indications you gave me in order to figure out exactly where I come out on exact details.
This system is broken. It is broken from an environmental and an economic standpoint. It's costing jobs, and it is preventing the United States from using its fish stocks, and instead, as you and I discussed, has resulted in importing,
right,
which destroys livelihoods and economic well-being in the New England states. And I'd like your commitment that you will work with me to use your emergency powers, but also to support legislative reform.
I'm very interested in helping balance the payments. I'm very interested in helping the fisheries, so I look forward to seeing the details of the suggested legislation.
And I want to welcome your modification, I'll put it somewhat delicately, of the plan that you and Mr. Navarro submitted, or your clarification of it, to permit other authorities like an infrastructure bank and a public financing authority, which I think are key to the public side of investment, and there has to be a robust public investment in our infrastructure, taking advantage of the low-interest environment that you very correctly suggested.
I think we're very fortunate, Senator, that it is a low-interest rate environment where we're trying to solve this problem. If it were a very high-interest rate environment, the problem would be 2 or 3 times as hard to solve.
Let me focus on another area where I think you have really made a very personal sacrifice. Your service has resulted in your divesting yourself of literally hundreds of millions of dollars in assets so that you could reach an agreement with the Office of Government Ethics. I don't want to embarrass you or presume, but obviously, of all of the billions of dollars in holdings that you own now, you have divested more than 90%. You have resigned from 50 positions. The process has been enormously complex and challenging and costly to you personally, correct?
Yes, sir.
And I want to ask you very directly, shouldn't the President of the United States do the same?
Well, as I understand it, the ethics rules that apply to Senate-approved nominees do not apply to the President.
But simply as a matter of appearance and morality, for that matter. You were able to do it. Why not the President?
I'm not familiar enough, Senator, with the exactitudes of his holdings to have any judgment as to how easy or hard it would be to do it.
You did it to avoid any conflicts of interest, correct?
That is correct, sir.
You now head an agency that will have direct authority that potentially could impact very seriously the President's financial well-being, correct? You head, for example, the Patent and Trademark Office.
Yes, sir.
The President's organization has 8 pending applications for new trademarks. His trademarks for hotel, clothing, real estate could well come before the Trademark Trial and Appeal Board. You appoint that board, correct?
Well, I had a discussion yesterday morning with the current head of the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, and I asked her how she was dealing with the matters relating to her former relationship with Google. And she outlined what I thought was a very thorough process for recusal and determining recusal, and I would intend to emulate the standard that she has set.
But there's no way to avoid a conflict of interest when the one with that interest is the President of the United States. He is your boss. He's her boss. He is the one who presides over the entire United States government, and you appoint the judges who will sit on that appeals board, correct?
That is correct.
And so I would respectfully suggest that that conflict of interest is inevitable so long as the President of the United States refuses to divest himself. Creating the trust that he has done is no substitute for complete divestiture. I realize you can't order him to do so, but you will be, in effect, put in a very difficult, if not impossible, position as the Secretary of Commerce, who has appointing authority and ultimately approval authority over the Patent and Trademarks Office.
Well, I'm quite sure everyone will be watching all of those matters, and therefore they will certainly be subject to public scrutiny.
My time has expired. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Blumenthal.